All right, Alexis, what kind of question do you have for me today?
Well, I hear the term capitalism a lot, and I kind of want to know, like, what is it? I don't exactly know what it is.
Okay, so capitalism. So, do you know what capital is?
It's like money?
It is like money. It can also be resources. We'll talk about in a minute. But the first thing is that capitalism is the best and most successful economic system that has ever been created. And there are some people who will argue that it is the most moral and most ethical economic system. And I agree with them, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about this, like why capitalism is best, because I think that's important. So here, I've got a thing here. Um, so the capitalism is responsible for bringing more people out of poverty than any other economic system in the world.
Really?
Yes. And so here are some statistics. So between 1970 and 2006, the people living in extreme poverty worldwide declined by 80%. And this is with the rise of things like capitalism and free trade. In short, the free enterprise system, American style, is our gift to the world. So globalization, free trade, and international entrepreneurship. Do you know what entrepreneurship is?
Entrepreneur is a person who's like just goes off and starts their own business, right?
Yes, it's people who start and build
So
businesses.
that's what they do.
So all of that has decreased the people living in extreme poverty worldwide by 80%.
Really?
Yes. So poverty used to include 94% of the world's population. And
Wow.
now it's only 17%, right? And this is all directly relatable to the rise and the spread of capitalism. So, one of the one of the best things about capitalism is that people in the middle and on the lower income brackets, they often benefit the most because of the new jobs that are created and because the innovation that capitalism creates makes products and services cheaper. So, used to, for example, like a computer was really expensive. It took up a whole room.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something that only a big institution or a huge company could have. And now
I carry a computer in my pocket.
you have a computer in your pocket. That's exactly right. And there's this house is full of computers. And there's actually there's been computers in cars for a long time just to control like the ignition and the timing and sort of the function of the engine. But now that's spread so that there are computers in there that help increase our comfort and our entertainment while we're in those vehicles too. And so the technological advancement has made it so that that benefit that used to be a luxury that only um, really it was only like universities and big businesses and places like that that had a lot of money could afford that, and now they've spread out to where it's commonplace. It's no longer really a luxury that only the wealthy could have. Um, so, the world is 120 times better off than in 1800 as a result of capitalism. And this is one of the things that they talk about. And it's not just technology like the computer. So it's also made education, art, and culture available to more people.
And medicine is
Well,
one
medicine.
thing.
And so it mentions that. So if you read Economist, one of the things they will talk about is life expectancy because it's a good sort of general purpose um, sort of measure for how people are doing because if you're getting better food and you're getting better medical care and you work in a job that's less dangerous, then life expectancy as a whole is going to go up over a population. And so life expectancy has been increasing all over the globe as capitalism has spread. And used to, things like art and entertainment were things that were mostly only accessible by the wealthy, and now that kind of stuff is accessible to pretty much everybody. Like if we want to see art, we can go to the art museum pretty much anytime that we want. And we can go to Natural History Museum, we can go to the Science Museum. We've taken you to plays, and used to that would be a very expensive proposition, and only the wealthy had access to that kind of art and culture, and now it's commonplace. So mortality rate for children under the age of 5 have declined 49% just from 1990 to 2013. And that is an indication of a higher standard of living, better access to medicine, better access to things like sanitation, like clean water, and a sanitary system that takes your pee and poop away.
Oh yeah, I read about that once in reading, and it was pretty gross actually.
Well, that is one of the keys to creating good quality of life, because there's a lot of diseases there, and if you have that waste in sort of the same areas where you're living, it exposes you to a lot more disease. And so now, for example, in a modern city with sewage treatment, they take that, they keep it contained in the pipes, they funnel it away to a location where it can be treated, and so it's not exposed to the environment, it's not exposed to other people, except I guess maybe the sanitation workers, and it's not exposed to any water sources. And whenever that sewage is treated, when the treatment process is done, the water that comes out a lot of times is cleaner than the water that you can find just like out of a creek or a river in the environment.
Really?
Yes.
Whoa.
So that's required before you get what's called a discharge permit from the EPA, because like all of that water coming in, it has to go somewhere. And so after it's treated, a lot of times it is cleaner than the water that you can get from like a lake or a river or a creek or somewhere.
Well, you don't know what's been in the lake.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why capitalism is awesome. Now let's talk about a little bit of how exactly that works. Like what makes all that awesomeness happen. So you said that capital is money, correct?
Yeah.
Capital is a good example of money because you use it to buy things. But capital can be other stuff as well. So it can be resources, so like timber or minerals. Like if we can have a little rock here. Or maybe we'll make it look like a gold bar or like an iron bar. Because a gold bar might be more like money. So resources. So let's see if I can. Ooh, this is awful. This is supposed to be like a little factory that we own.
It's run down now.
Well, it's just badly drawn. So the foundation of capitalism, like the ideas around it, have been around for a pretty long time. But the first guy that ever really wrote a lot about it, he's the one that made a lot of it the most popular, is a guy named Adam Smith. And it was in a book he wrote called I butchered that. Called The Wealth of Nations. It's actually longer than that, but so he was Scottish.
Scottish.
Yeah, but we like him because, all right, so it was actually called An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. But most people just call it The Wealth of Nations. And he lays down a lot of the economic theory that underpins capitalism, and he sort of came up with a lot of the terminology. And so the basic idea of capitalism is that capital will flow to wherever it is most productive. And so, like, one of the examples, if you read textbooks and stuff like that, is so the cart and buggy, right? So at one point in time, the primary means of getting around, oh, that's an awful looking little buggy, was horse-drawn, like a horse-drawn carriage. And to control the horse, you had a buggy whip, which was a specialized sort of piece of equipment. And there was companies that's what they did. They built these kind of things all day long. And then along came a technological innovation. You want to take a guess at what it is?
Cars.
Cars. So along comes the car, and it makes the horse and buggy mostly obsolete. And the secondary businesses that were built up around it, like the buggy whip, they're also obsolete. And so those companies go out of business.
You don't need to whip a car.
You do not need to whip a car. And so the resources that were dedicated to building these products, so the money, the raw materials like the wood and the metal, all of that stuff leaves and it flows over here because people want this new, more convenient, more powerful technology. And so all of these resources move from the whip and buggy to the automobile. And that includes sort of ancillary technology. So one thing most people don't know is that in oil refining, gasoline used to be a waste product.
What?
Yes, there was not really much use for gasoline. So they would use heavier oils for like heating and for steam engines and things like that. Lamp oil, like kerosene, is a heavier oil that you can distill out of it. But gasoline is considered to be lighter. And it was basically a waste product. There was not really a use for it until
making oil prices angry now.
Well, I'm just saying, like, whenever they refined a barrel of oil, the gasoline was largely considered to be a waste product until the advent of the automobile.
So they just threw it away till cars.
I don't know if they just threw it away, but it wasn't valuable. So they may have been able to turn it into like paint thinner or something like that. But it wasn't near as valuable because there weren't uses for it. And we can look up more about that sometime if you want, and we can talk about that. But so all of a sudden, there's more resources going into the production of oil and gasoline because all of a sudden we have this new use for it. So all of that capital moves to there. And so that's one example. Another example that you will probably be a little more familiar with is this thing called Netflix. Okay. So have you heard of Blockbuster before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
like an awesome movie, right?
Okay, not Blockbuster the movie, Blockbuster the company.
Oh, that Blockbuster. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So you've probably only seen it as like it was a joke in I think one of the Captain Marvel films. So Blockbuster Video used to be one of the biggest video rental companies in the world. And so you may not believe that life was so hard for us, but used to, you would go into a store whenever you wanted to watch a new movie and you would buy it like a tape. Well, you wouldn't buy it, you would rent it. You would rent a tape from this company.
Like a giant red box.
It's like a giant red box, except they had people in there and they had like stores. You'd go look at the shelves.
You actually have to interact with the humans to get it.
Yes. And so, yeah, and then you would take that back to your home and you were allowed to rent it for a certain number of days, kind of like a library, and they would charge you extra. And you would watch this new movie and then you'd bring it back. Right? And so I wonder if there's a... and then when DVDs came out, they rented DVDs. They would rent video games. So see, like there was just shelves and shelves of
movies.
Yes, movies and stuff. All right, so along came Netflix. Now, what does Netflix do?
It lets you watch movies like anywhere. You can just watch the movies on your computer, like your phone, if you have an account.
When it originally started, that's not what Netflix did.
Really?
Netflix would send you a DVD in the mail.
What?
Yes. And so you had a subscription, and part of your subscription was you could have a certain number of discs rented at a time. And so they would mail you this disc. I can probably find a picture of that too. Let's see if we can find a Netflix DVD mailer. And see, like you would get these envelopes, and they would have DVDs in, and you would watch it, and there was no penalty for you sort of keeping them for longer, but you could only have so many at a time. And you would go on the website and you would pick out the movies that you would want, and then you would send it back, and then you would get the next one on your list whenever it was available. So you could keep them for a long time. It's just that you didn't get your next one until you sent it back in. So when Netflix came along, all of a sudden, the model of Blockbuster became problematic. So the streaming came later, which is what most people know about Netflix now, which is you can just watch it anywhere you have a
device.
Yes, and an internet connection. So Netflix and so Blockbuster, their thing was like a big movie ticket, right? All of a sudden, the capital, the resources from Blockbuster started leaving and going to Netflix because it was a newer technology. It was something that provided a convenience to customers, and it started growing, and it was making more money. And so it was the most productive use. And so the resources started leaving Blockbuster and going to Netflix. This process is called creative destruction. And creative destruction is sort of a defining feature of capitalism. Creative destruction. And it basically means that old ways of doing business, old business models, old technology are destroyed because newer ways of doing business, newer ways of making money, newer technologies, newer products and services, all of that stuff is created, and it's better, and so it just replaces the old. And it's not a bad process. So for one reason, it's what gets you new stuff. The other reason is that in our examples, these companies and these sort of things, that looks more like a ghost than my Blockbuster ticket. But
the ghost of Blockbuster.
Yeah. So whenever we talk about it, a lot of times we talk about in the books about, the horse and buggy and Blockbuster, and these companies are dying, and it seems like it's all destructive. Like a winner just emerges out of it, and these things are destroyed.
So it sounds really bad, but it's actually not that bad.
Well, that's because whenever you're giving the examples, like these are the most drastic, but it's not the only part of capital moving. So part of it, instead of the buggy makers, let's look at another example. So,
is that a light bulb?
Have you heard of the company called General Electric?
Sort of.
General Electric is a company that was formed from a bunch of other companies by a guy named Thomas Edison. Heard of him, right?
Yes, I've heard of Thomas Edison.
So GE still makes light bulbs. You know what else they make now?
What?
Jet engines. They make generators. They make industrial control devices. They're one of the largest companies in the world.
Awesome.
And what happened is, so they were making the light bulb, but as other technologies emerged, they didn't die off and have other companies replace them, they got into that business too. It's
They made more than just light bulbs.
they made more than just light bulbs. And so, so that's supposed to be a jet engine.
It kind of does look like an engine.
So Blockbuster, it is probably not going to survive. I think it's technically still a company.
It still exists.
But
I've never seen one, but I heard of it.
Even though that model is sort of dying, others, like, have you heard of Disney Plus?
Yes.
Have you heard of HBO?
Yes.
So a lot of those, now part of the issue is they are content creators, right? Blockbuster never made its own content.
They make their own movies.
Right, and they have adopted the Netflix model to cut out the middleman. So now, like, HBO makes sort of made-for-TV movies and series and things like that. Well, instead of, trying to sell all that to a cable company or a dish company and then have them sell that to customers, they're just going to try and sell it straight to the customer with their online streaming platform.
It's working.
Yeah, Disney is doing the same thing. So they make movies and, TV shows and series and things like that. Hulu was another example. So they're adopting similar technology to Netflix to increase their own business model. And so that is also capitalism, right? It's not just one company falls, another one rises. It's the companies that already exist. So they're moving around the resources within their own company to better meet the new economic climate.
They are adapting.
Yes. So another example is, have you heard of this thing called Walmart?
Everyone's heard of Walmart, Dad.
Right, and you've heard of this thing called Amazon?
Yes, Dad.
So when Amazon started growing, like, they were one of the, like, they've become pretty much the biggest name in online retail, which is selling stuff online and shipping it to people.
What about eBay?
eBay's another one of the big ones. Amazon has surpassed eBay in terms of size. eBay was one of the earlier ones too.
I'm just messing around.
No, that's a good question. And so there was a lot of people that thought that what they call a brick and mortar store, like the store that you actually walk into, was going to die completely. Like, no one would ever walk into a store because you could just order stuff online.
That seems a bit much.
Right. Because there are uses for a store. And so people thought that all of the resources were going to go from places like Walmart to places like Amazon.
You cannot kill Walmart, though, for real.
Well, Walmart changed. They moved the capital around and the resources around within their own company, and they provided services that people wanted in the face of this new thing. So they have their own big online selling. Like, you can go on walmart.com and you can buy stuff. They started doing the grocery pickup, which we love. So that is capitalism, right? That is the resources. So within the company, they took the resources that they had and they moved them to a different thing. They invested more in computers and servers and website and the technology it took to start selling their own stuff online. And a lot of times they compete. If you watch, like, Amazon isn't always the cheapest place to buy things because Walmart is competing with them. And they started offering a new service that people like because it's super convenient. Like, to be able to just pull up and have someone load their groceries into your car, or load your groceries into the car, and then you pull away. It's already all paid for. You don't have to shop. You don't have to get out. It's super convenient.
You just kind of got to sign a thing, and then you're done.
That is a new service that people really like. And it developed because Walmart moved its own resources around to make those things happen. So that is foundationally what capitalism is moving resources around to their most productive use. So to make all of that happen, you tend to have certain ingredients. So one of them is private ownership. As opposed to collective ownership. So an example of this, the thing that you're most likely where you've experienced collective ownership is at school. So the school is a district. It's technically a government entity, but everybody that lives in the district, their taxpayer dollars go to funding the school. And so we all sort of have a little bit of, we'll say stake instead of ownership, but we do get to sort of vote about things. The district is its own entity. But would you say that your fellow students at school treat the property of the school well, or do they tear stuff up?
For real, people are tearing keys off the Chromebooks for no reason.
Right. Do they vandalize the desk, like they try and cut stuff in the desk or draw on them and stuff like that?
Yes.
Yeah. What about in the bathroom? Like they write on the walls in the bathroom?
Our bathroom seems fine.
Okay. Well, that's a thing that they do in other places.
It might be in the boys, but I've seen that in the high school though. Like they write on the stalls and stuff.
Okay. At our barn, for example, does anyone vandalize stuff at our barn?
Not really.
Do we tear any of this stuff up at our barn? I mean, like, purposefully. Like, we obviously tear up stuff because agricultural work is hard.
I was about to say, not on purpose.
All right.
Okay, the pigs might tear stuff up on purpose, though.
Well, those are animals. So, part of what happens when you have collective ownership, there's this thing called the diffusion of responsibility. And, oh man, I shouldn't have written this out. So you hear about diffusion of responsibility a lot of times in psychology, and the case that they always bring up is this lady, I think her name was Mary Louise Genovese. Her last name was Genovese, I'm pretty sure. And it was like in New York. And she was murdered.
Oh my gosh.
And she was murdered like in an apartment.
Jeez.
Where like dozens and dozens of people heard it. Like this guy stabbed her. Like he chased her around and stabbed her. And it took place over a long time. Like
so they like heard her screaming and running, and they were like, you know what? We're just gonna chill out here for a while.
No one called the police.
Why? I would have been like, there's someone getting murdered in our building.
Right. Well, they did research on it, and what they decided it was is diffusion of responsibility. So if there's one person there and this person's being attacked, like by, a third person, I guess. So there's one bystander.
There was more than one bystander in an entire apartment.
Right. So let's make him all the way red. So here's our murderer. Right. If there's one bystander, then that person has all of the responsibility to call for help, to intervene, to do whatever. Okay? If, however, there's several bystanders, the responsibility is diffused out between all of you. And you get this effect where everyone kind of sits there and says, well, I don't know if I need to do it. Maybe someone else will.
Really?
Yes. And so just as a sidebar, if you're ever in trouble and you're around in a group of people and it's not necessarily if you're in trouble, like let's say if someone like starts having a heart attack and you're administering first aid or something like that, and there's a bunch of other people standing around, the way to overcome diffusion of responsibility is you have to pick someone out and you have to point at them and say, you go call 911. You go find me this thing, because that clamps the responsibility down onto them. Because otherwise, and it's not guaranteed. I mean, people are different, but you get this effect that's the diffusion of responsibility. And so that happens a lot of time when you have collective ownership. So if we have Chromebooks, right? You brought that up. So those Chromebooks, Who pays for those Chromebooks if the keys all get torn out of them?
The school.
Okay, but where does the school get its money?
Taxes.
Yeah, it gets it from everywhere out in the community. So if we tear something up at the barn, where does that money come from to replace it?
Well, that's our money.
That's our money, right? And if someone is stealing these or destroying these, whose responsibility is it to stop them?
Anyone who knows who's doing it.
Okay, so that sounds like it's a diffused responsibility.
Well, kind of does. What if there's only one person, they saw them doing it?
Well, okay, but that's not your Chromebook, is it?
Technically, it's the school's Chromebook, so
All right.
they can't tear it up.
Okay.
Ah.
So, but the point is that at some place that is privately owned, it's individually owned, the responsibility is concentrated. So, who stops people from vandalizing things at my barn? I do.
Yes.
With weapons if necessary.
I don't.
Who stops people from stealing things at my barn? I do. With weapons if necessary. Because it is my responsibility. It is my sole responsibility to stop those things. Whenever you have anything that's collectively owned, the responsibility is diffused out, and it creates a situation where a lot of people are not going to take action. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It also creates, I don't know that there's a term for it, but it creates a diffusion of rewards as well.
Ooh.
So, if you stop people from vandalizing stuff at your school, what's the reward for it?
People might stop being crackheads for once in their life.
Well, I mean, there's not really very much reward for it. So, like, the school may spend less. They probably won't lower our taxes because taxes tend to not go down. So, like, the reward for, like, preventing that kind of stuff is really low. I mean, you might get a pat on the back and a good job. They'll print you out a certificate.
I don't know about that, but I don't know. The Chromebook thing is just kind of annoying, so it would stop being annoying.
Right. At my barn, what are the rewards for me taking care of my barn?
I called with the police. I'm joking.
No.
I'm joking. Having a good barn.
Well, yeah, I benefit direct. That is why we spent money to have work done on the barn. That's why we've invested our own time into our barn. So all of those days where you helped me and we did the plumbing or the electric wiring in the barn, you benefit directly from that, right? Because it's good for your pigs. And I benefit directly from that, right? If you stop someone from tearing keys out of your Chromebook, how much direct benefit do you get?
Less annoyance.
Well, I'm just saying. So
I guess not as much.
when you have private ownership, the penalties and rewards for your actions are directly tied together. And so, like, if you own a business, whenever you work for that business, it directly benefits you. If something bad happens to that business, it directly affects you, like, negatively. So if you own a business and someone comes and breaks out all your windows, you have to pay to fix the windows. Whenever it's separated out amongst a bunch of people, right, who own something.
They're like, someone else will fix the windows.
Well, yeah. And it's not always that's what happens. You may get an individual that's really invested and they try and help out. It's just that the human nature of it is that responsibility gets diffused. And the rewards are also diffused for improving it, for making it better, for investing and working hard and things like that. And so it just, whenever you have private ownership, the people work hard to make it better.
Looks like a birdhouse.
A little bit. Private birdhouse. Whenever you have a private birdhouse, people work harder to improve it because they directly benefit from it. And since you own it, it's your responsibility. It's your job. You can't slough it off on anyone else. And so it just really ties it close together, and it leads to hard work and investment and improvement. Whereas whenever you have stuff that's collective, then again, it gets spread out. And so there's just much less incentive for people to put in the work necessary to improve it.
So in Aubrey's mind, doing simple chores or opening the door is a collective thing between me and her.
Yes, very much so. All right, another thing is you get what's a free market, and you get central control. So capitalism loves a free market.
That's where you can, like, sell whatever you want, right? Well, maybe not weapons.
So the free market just means that people's buying decisions are all on them. So the price of products is determined by supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I make a new invention, whatever it is, and I decide to sell it, what is it worth?
What you first pick.
It's worth whatever someone will pay for it.
Yep.
So if it's a really cool invention and people like it, and they like it a lot, and they're willing to spend a lot of money, that's high demand. And so the price of it will go up.
It will go up.
It will go up until it's too expensive and people decide they don't want it anymore. If I make an invention that nobody really likes, it's not that much better, people won't pay very much for it. My business will probably kind of sputter out.
What if you made something that a lot of people want and it was kind of cheap?
Well, then you can sell a lot of them.
Like, then you could sell a lot and, like, get all the money, like, together.
Right, so,
and it would be a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, $5 would eventually make a lot.
Yeah, so the difference of that is, like, whatever it costs to make it. So it costs me however many dollars to actually create my little box o' magic here, right? And so I have to sell it for more than that. And if the demand for it is really, really high, I'll make a lot of money because I can sell it for a lot more than it cost me to make that box. If it's medium high, I'll still be able to probably run a profitable business. I'll probably have to keep working on it to maybe make it better. I'll have to perhaps invest in some other different products and diversify the things that my business is doing.
To make more boxes.
Yeah, because it's making money, but it's not enough. If the demand for it is lower than what it costs to make it, I'm going to go out of business. Yeah. All right. So the great thing about the free market is that the prices for things are set by what people want. So if you want something really, really bad, whatever it is, then that's how the price is determined. And if there's products that you don't like, you don't have to pay for them. And those companies will struggle, and a lot of times they go out of business. Central control, which is not capitalism, is where somebody somewhere in an office, it's usually a government office, they make a decision, and then they just do stuff.
Oh, yeah, we did talk about this in history.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about communism.
So communism has a lot of central control. It's one of the reasons why it doesn't work. So if you want an example of that, let's see. Oh, wait, here, let's just look this up for a second. Have you ever seen a dollar coin?
I don't know. I probably have in, like, a picture. I don't know about, like, for real.
So, let's see. So here's some examples of... Oh, there's lots of them. So these are examples of US dollar coins because the government has tried several times to get people to use dollar coins. Well, because dollar bills, like, so there is a certain cost to making money, right? And what I'm,
Cotton, isn't it?
well, it's a cotton paper blend, but you know, there's printing costs. So, like, there's monetary cost to the actual manufacture of money. And paper money wears out and it has to be replaced. So, like, when your bills get dirty and torn up and stuff like that, the bank exchanges them out with the Federal Reserve, and they take those bills and they shred them up and burn them. And
Wow.
then they give them new bills.
That's illegal.
Well, it's not illegal if the Federal Reserve does it.
So if the Federal Reserve burns money, it's not illegal.
It's not illegal for you to burn your money.
I thought it was illegal to deface U.S. currency, though.
Yeah, well, maybe. So, in theory, a dollar coin would save the government money because coins last longer and the metal can technically be recycled. And so this is what they call the Ike. It's President Eisenhower dollar coin. And these are, so this one with sort of the funny looking sides. That's a Susan B. Anthony, or they used to call it a Susie B. It was a dollar coin. And then these are Sacagawea dollar coins. And these are new ones. I haven't even seen one of these. These came out relatively recently. Those are presidential series dollar coins.
What?
So they came out with the Eisenhower dollar, or the Ike, and it was big. It was big, like, you probably haven't even seen a 50-cent piece.
I think I have. It's a big coin.
So it's a big coin. People didn't like it.
Because it was a big coin.
Because it was a big coin. And so so coins are controlled by Congress, basically. And so they passed a law to try and institute dollar coin. People didn't like this big coin. So they came out with these Susan B. Anthonys. You know who Susan B. Anthony is?
Yeah. Mostly.
Mostly? Tell me. Suffragette. She fought for women's suffrage.
Oh, yeah.
Or women's ability to vote, if you don't know what suffrage is.
I think I know.
So the Susan B. Anthony, or the Susie B., they came out with that. It was a smaller coin. But do you notice a problem with it?
I can't really. It's got weird edges.
Yeah, well, it looks a lot like a quarter.
It does kind of look like a quarter.
So people didn't like them because
It looks like a
it looks like a quarter. And one of the benefits is that for a while, vending machines did not play nice with bills.
Oh.
And they really needed coins to work appropriately. And so if you wanted to have vending machines to accept dollars and give back dollar change, you really needed the dollar coin. Well, this Susan B. Anthony dollar was worthless for that because it would get confused with quarters by people and by the machines.
Oh my.
So people didn't like it. They didn't use it. This came out, I'm pretty sure I was still in high school when the Sacagawea came out. And it's different. So the edges are different. So it doesn't feel like a quarter. It's a different color. So it doesn't look like a quarter. It's just slightly different enough that it wouldn't be confused with a quarter. And people who like coins, like your grandpa, he loves coins. That's why he gives y'all like silver dollars for your birthdays and stuff like that. He would get these and he would like leave it for people for tips whenever we go out to eat. And he just likes coins, so he used them. Guess who else used those?
Who?
Nobody. And so that went away.
Yeah.
Well, they have tried again. This is the most recent one. I would have to look it up to see.
Who even is that?
That's James Madison.
Oh.
Is this presidential series dollar coin where they,
I'm going to use that.
well, they thought, well, since we have presidents on them, maybe people will like them. There are estimates that right now, and maybe right now has passed, they may have decided to grind them up. There is over $1 billion worth of dollar coins
Oh my gosh.
sitting in the Federal Reserve vaults, just sitting there, because no one wants to use them. Do you want to carry around a dollar coin?
Not really.
Not really. Do you know why no one wants to carry around dollar coins?
Because, like, I don't know, paper money just seems kind of easier, and
Paper money is easier. What if I told you that the entire reason that paper money was invented was to replace coins?
oh my gosh, actually that makes sense.
So, back before, and this is like a long time ago, originally, paper money was created by the free market. It wasn't a government thing. It was called a banknote. And so you would have your bank, and the legal tender that the government produced was all coins. And people don't like carrying around coins. They're heavy, they're jangly, they're hard to deal with.
They make a lot of noise.
They don't take, I mean, they take up a lot of space. It's just kind of a pain in the butt.
When you can just fold paper.
And so certain banks, they started doing this thing. You could bring your coins to the bank, and they would give you back a banknote, which was a piece of paper that was worth, you know, however many, whatever the currency was. I think a lot of the early ones were in like London, and so it would be worth so many pounds, right? Or if it was in the United States, it'd be worth so many dollars. Like it's a banknote that said I'm worth so many dollars, and you could give that note to whoever you wanted, and they could take it back to the bank, and they could get coins back for it.
And eventually someone thought, hey, what if you just gave us paper and we just decided to trade paper instead of doing this whole thing?
Well, I mean, that's what happened, is that in certain places, the banks would come up with agreements so that banknotes were good at different banks. They set up what they called clearing houses, so that you could take a banknote from any bank that was a member of the clearinghouse and take it to another bank that was a member of the clearinghouse, and they would consider it good.
Oh.
And so as long as everybody agreed that these banknotes were money, it spent just as well as coins. And people loved them, right? Because they fold up, they're easy, they're lightweight. You can carry like $100 bill, which if you had $100 coins would, you know, you'd have to carry around in a sack, you know,
Oh, that would
or a cart, you know. I mean, it would be a big, heavy burden. Well, you could just carry all that around, and I could pay you in this banknote, and then you could pay somebody else in this banknote, and then, you know, it doesn't really matter. Eventually, somebody would take the banknote back to the bank, and they could trade it in for coins if they wanted to. It was a perfectly good substitute that emerged out of the free market that people like. The whole point of banknotes, of paper money, was to replace coins.
And now they're like, paper is too expensive.
Well, so
feels like they spent more on all these coins than a few like dollars.
Well, that's because it's central control. You have these people in the government, they don't care what people want. They think that people will spend these dollar coins.
No one's going to spend the coins.
People don't like them, and so people don't use them. There is only one way that people will use the dollar coins.
If they like coins.
Well, there's that. Canada introduced a dollar coin, and they got people to use the dollar coin. Do you want to know how they did it?
I don't know how.
They banned paper dollars.
Okay, that's not cool, though.
Right?
Canada's just like, okay, they're not going to use that unless we take away paper dollars.
That is, to me, one of the best examples of the fallacy of central control, is because you have these people in government. Let's see if we can draw a halfway.
Looks like a vent.
Yeah, we'll pretend that looks like a Capitol building. Right? So they're up there and they say, hey, you know what? I think people would like these dollar coins. And all of the people out in the populace say, no, we don't really want the dollar coins. And so they keep trying because they're just like, hey, you know what? These dollar coins, it'd be a good deal.
No, it wouldn't.
And the people out in there say, no, we don't really want the dollar coins. And so like I think we're at least 5 tries into the dollar coin now.
Oh my.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe just 4.
It's like 7.
4 recent ones. Well, all of these are Sacagaweas, and those are 2 Susan B. Anthony's.
Oh.
But we're several tries into trying to get the people to use dollar coins. And so we have a template for what's going to happen if they actually want you to use the dollar coin, is they're going to ban your paper dollars, which is the thing that people want. And it's the whole reason that paper money was invented is so you didn't use coins. It would be like saying, we like those rotary telephones that hang on the wall. And so
Like the one in Granddad's house?
Yes. So we're gonna have these old rotary telephones, and we're going to spend taxpayer money to put these rotary telephones out. And then when no one likes them, we'll say, well, we'll try again. We'll make it a different color, because that's the problem. And they'll put the rotary telephone out there in the different color, and people still don't want it.
Dumb.
And so they'll say, well, you know what? We'll put someone's face on it.
What?
Because that's what really is the difference.
No, it's just that no one wants
And then at the
that.
end of the day, what they're going to say is, you know what? You're going to use the rotary telephone. We're going to ban your cell phones to get you to use it.
Bruh.
That is essentially what they're doing. That is why central control is stupid. That is why it doesn't work, is because the free market says, hey, what do people want? If people want paper money, the free market makes paper money. If people want cell phones, the people make cell phones. If people want little LOL dolls that are basically trash and you unwrap them, and I don't know why any kid would want those, it doesn't matter.
Aubrey.
They make them.
They make them for weird kids like Aubrey.
Yes. So there's this guy that I follow on his YouTube channel. He has a statue of a fighting game character. And it's like really expensive. Like it was several $100s.
What
But it's
character?
her name's Jury. She's
like,
a Street Fighter character.
oh. I was like, it depends on what character.
He also has a scorpion mask in his little
Okay, that's
collection.
cool though.
But like these are really expensive items. I would never buy such an item. I see no appeal to it. Guess what? If he wants to buy it, he can buy it. And the free market will provide that for him.
Well, if he can buy it, that is... The mask thing is pretty cool.
So, private ownership of property, free market. The other sort of thing, and we wobble in different parts in the middle. So there's government control and what's called Laissez Faire, and it's actually spelled like Lassize fair.
Is it French or something?
It is French. It's French for let it be.
Well, that's kind of seems like a French spelling. I don't know.
Let's see if we can find it. So, Lassize. Oh,
Well, that was fast.
yeah. So, Laissez Faire. Oh, wait. Oh, well, that's because it's hyphenated. It basically means let them do. It means laid back. It means let it be.
Go with the flow.
If you have laissez-faire, the government pretty much lets the economy do whatever it wants. Free trade, fine. You can sell the stuff to wherever. Very limited regulations, very limited taxes, that kind of stuff. Government control is those things. It's taxes, it's regulations, it's tariffs to prevent you from trading.
Taxes are just kind of annoying, though.
Well,
Like, because they add the price. Why don't you just write the taxes on the price tag with it so you know the legit price instead of going up there and not having enough?
in some countries, that's the way they do it.
Well, it doesn't seem too bad to, like, have it on the price tag so you know exactly what you're paying.
I don't really know why we do it that way, but we do. And in other countries, it's all built in. But whenever you have laissez-faire, there is more growth, there's more innovation. So one of the best examples of that is, so you've heard of Uber, right?
Yeah. They drive you places.
They do drive you places. So there's Uber and there's taxis. So taxis in a lot of places are very heavily regulated. So
Apparently not in New Orleans.
oh yeah, that guy was crazy. But they're probably still even heavily regulated there. So they have regulations for like the vehicle, for safety, and that kind of stuff. A lot of times, even I will agree to some kind of regulation for that because we're trying to keep people safe.
Vehicle safety is important.
Yeah, well, if it's done correctly, I don't think it's very intrusive. But in a lot of their places, they'll have what they call medallions. And so they're not just regulating like the quality of the car or the safety of the car. They're actually putting a limit on the number of taxis that'll be on the road.
Why does that makes no sense?
Well, it's specifically restricting the supply so that you can increase the price.
Well, taxis are already expensive.
Well, if you own a bunch of taxis and you can get the government to agree with you, then they will restrict the supply for you so that you can keep your prices high. And it reduces competition. So Uber kind of ran around all of that stuff.
They're just like, nope.
Because we're not taxis. We're just a service where the people, it's ride sharing. The people, they drive, they do it of their own accord. And, we're not a taxi service. We don't own the cars. These people just, they sign up for the service, and it allows them to spend their free time and their investment in their vehicle. And Uber just arranges the transaction. They're just sort of the go-between. And taxi companies did not like it. And one of the reasons is, like a lot of times, the people's cars, they kept them nicer and cleaner. It was more convenient because you had an app. It was less expensive because, they didn't have a taxi monopoly. And in some places, because I used to travel a lot, the taxi companies did what I think is right, which is they improved. They got better. They started having, that's a terrible era. They started having cleaner cars. They launched their own apps to make it.
Taxi app.
Yeah, so it was easier to hail a cab and schedule your rides. They just in general improved their service. They made it so you could pay with credit card and things like that in the cab. They just did a lot of things to make their service better so that you would consider taking a taxi instead of an Uber. In a lot of other places, they did what I would consider the wrong thing, which is they tried to crush them with regulation. Regulate them.
You're trying to regulate a separate website, whatever.
Yeah.
So something completely different. They're like, how about we regulate this thing that doesn't really have anything to do with us except they're doing something better.
Well, they're trying to force Uber to, or the drivers within, whatever cities that they can, to follow the same regulations that the taxis do.
How are we going to know how many cars are the Uber cars?
Well, it has a lot of different problems, but the fundamental problem of it is that it's government intervention as opposed to laissez faire. And so what would be the most capitalistic response is to look at the regulation that the taxi companies are forced to live under, prune those back if they're unreasonable, maybe get rid of the medallion system so that there's freer competition, and let those companies improve, because there's a lot of them that's what they did. They looked at the competition and they said, why do people like it? It's cheaper, it's more convenient, the cars are cleaner, and it's just overall a better service. And so they stepped their game up. They invested in their cars, they got better cars, they got new technology to make it more convenient, they launched their own apps. They went out and they made themselves a better service. And there's a lot of places where I would still take a cab, and I have whenever I travel, because they compete with cost and convenience and comfort with Ubers. And that's good. Let them compete. In a lot of other places, I haven't really been to them. I just know that I've followed it in the news. Their response has been, let's get the government to regulate them or ban them. Just say, you can't operate in this city because you don't follow these regulations. And that is bad for the customer, because now the customer has less choice. They don't have access to the convenient service. They don't have access to the cleaner cars. And the taxis have no competition that's forcing them to improve their service. So that's the difference between laissez-faire and government regulation. In the United States, right, so if we've got gov over here, and Laissez Faire over here. Like we waffle, and we're not very Laissez Faire anymore, but we sort of run in this range.
Wait, why not?
There's a lot of government regulation right now.
Well, yeah, because of the dumb COVID.
Well, it's not just that. It's just because it's the way the system is set up, it takes the same amount of political will to roll back regulation as it does to create them. And so what happens is you get this stuff and it just keeps building up over time. And nobody ever comes back through and looks at like that regulation and says, you know what, that one wasn't written very well. We don't need it anymore. This one, maybe we need it, but we need to make it smaller. You know, we can do better. That's not really that process. Like, it's very rare that that happens. Or repeal a law and it's just like, we passed this law, we don't really need it anymore.
Well, why don't you be open to the suggestion of doing that stuff?
That's just not the way it works. So it tends to stack up and build up over time.
Mm-hmm.
So that is like what capitalism is. It's the movement of resources to their most productive use. And it tends to be accompanied with free markets. It tends to be, it requires private ownership, because that means that private people own that capital, and it means they're going to make the decision to move it to a more productive use. And it has a range of government intervention and laissez-faire. I tend to like laissez-faire more than government intervention. But remember, I told you that some people say it is the most moral and most ethical. Do you want to take a guess at why?
Because it's not as strict, and it kind of helped people out of poverty. Voluntary. That makes sense.
So the entire foundation of capitalism is built on the concept of voluntary exchange.
Because you're not being forced to do things.
So remember when we used to go eat pizza after church every Sunday?
Pizza.
Yes. So a lot of times we would go to Pizza Hut because I like Pizza Hut pizza personally. And we used to like their lunch buffet. Well, for a while they had a bad manager and the lunch buffet wasn't very good. So what did we do?
We went to Mazzio's.
We went to Mazzio's, right? And a lot of people like Domino's. And Domino's, they've even said in a lot of their, well, they haven't done it for a while. For a while, Domino's pizza was not very good. And they actually went through a development process to make their pizza better. But a lot of times, whenever we order out, we order from Domino's because they have, they just have stuff that your mom and y'all like better than Pizza Hut. And it tastes good enough for me. I don't fight about it. Whenever we decided to stop eating out as much and actually get pizza and bring it home.
We got Little Caesars.
That's right. We went pizza, Little Caesars.
And we got it from the pizza portal.
That's right, because it's cheaper, it's super convenient. We get to make all of these choices, and it's voluntary. Pizza Hut cannot come and hold a gun to my head and say, Mr. Wilson, I need you to buy some pizza.
Okay, Pizza Hut would not. They shouldn't try that.
Well, they can't. It's against the law.
Well, yeah, it's against the law, and you specifically would be a bad idea.
Well, that's true. But so we get all of these choices, and we get to spend the money wherever we want. It is completely a voluntary exchange. If we decide we don't want any pizza at all, and we're just going to eat salad for that day,
we can get salad if we want.
We can do that. We are not forced to spend our money with them at all. We are not forced to work at any one particular job. So most people don't think about it this way, but whenever you work for a company, you are selling your services.
You're selling your time and effort.
You are. And the company is buying it from you for a set price. The same way we go and we buy pizza from Pizza Hut, they're buying your labor, your time, your services, your skills from you for a price. And you get to negotiate on that price. If the price is too low, you don't have to work for them. You can go work for this company over here. Right? Who's going to pay you more? And if a company has an employee that is causing problems, they're not worth it, they're not required by law to keep hiring that person. You don't have to buy that person's time and services from them if you don't want to. And so that means that everything is done by someone's choice. You cannot be forced to engage in any kind of economic activity, except stuff that's specifically with the government.
Voting?
Well, not the voting, like the DMV. You've heard about how awful that is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, well.
That's where you get your driver's license.
Well, driver's license, car tags, a lot of that stuff. Processing.
Doesn't seem that bad. Well, that might just be because I get M&Ms there.
Yeah, the car titles and stuff. Well, there's no competition. You have to go there if you want to do any stuff with your vehicles.
What if there's a less boring DMV?
There's not, because if someone made a less boring DMV, it would put the government DMV out of business. But there is no competitor. It's a government monopoly. You have to do stuff at the DMV if you want to have anything to do with vehicles.
I'm going to walk everywhere.
Your only choice is to walk everywhere. And so that is one of the reasons that people hate it. You're forced to go there because there's no competition. They're not required to reduce the prices. They're not required to improve their services and make it more convenient. Whereas a capitalist free market system, because it's based on voluntary exchange, means that no one's ever forced to do anything. You don't have to work for someone. If you you can choose not to work for a particular company.
You can choose to be a hobo.
You can choose to be a hobo. Not a good choice, but you can choose that. You can choose to buy pizza from whoever you want or not buy pizza at all. Like, there is no requirement that you spend that money that way. And so that's why people say it is the most moral and the most ethical, because if you don't want to spend your money on pizza, if you think that, it's murdering the pizza plants, and so it's unethical for you to eat pizza, you don't have to eat pizza.
Actually, you can't really avoid eating anything alive unless you want to eat rocks.
Okay, thanks for that.
I'm joking.
So did I answer your question?
Yes.
All right. Then we'll wrap that up for today, because I'm getting thirsty, and eating rocks is a sign we've gone off the rails. So say bye.